إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. Don't commit any sins under the pretext of da'wah. Some people fool themselves. They fool themselves because you can't fool Allah. They will justify a stance or a setting that they're in, a sinful setting that they're in, by crying and saying da'wah. Don't be caught, for example, sitting at a table with alcohol, where alcohol is being roamed around, passed around, and say, Wallahi, I'm giving these people da'wah. When a case like that was presented to Umar ibn al-Khattab, he started with lashing the people. He ordered the lashing of the people who were not drinking before those who were drinking. Some of them said, we're fasting, Umar. He said, with them start. Don't be caught among those who, a man, a brother, among women, you see him in a setting where women are improperly dressed, and then he'll tell you, I'm giving da'wah. Don't be caught with a sister alone and say, Wallahi, I'm teaching her Qur'an. Don't have those tights or the tight jeans and that which they call today a scarf or hijab. They call today a hijab, actually. Looking more like someone who's trying to model, standing before a table with a few leaflets, and then cry and say da'wah table. I mention this because of this matter is widespread. For example, it's widespread in weddings. You see weddings where Muslims do. We can't call them non-Muslims. If they make their salah and they commit sins, we can't call them non-Muslim, but it's extremely major sin what they do. They have every shaitanic instrument in the hall. Nisa'un kasiyatun ariyat. Women improperly dressed. Mixing and mingling at its peak. And women with all that which is prohibited for another foreign man to see, they're there in that setting. You ask a brother who you presume is righteous, what were you there doing? This happens frequently. I'm not saying it's all the brothers who are religious do that, but it does happen frequently. What are you doing over there in that wedding? Wallah, da'wah. Your da'wah is to talk people in a setting like that out of that sin. If you can't, then you need to walk away. If you can go talk to them and talk them out of that sin and stop them, then not only should you go, but you must go if you can talk them out of it. Because that's the peak of ordaining the good and forbidding the evil. If you go talk to them and they're going to listen to you and stop those instruments and stop the mixing and mingling, you say, well, I'm going to go stop them and I'm going to talk them out of it, then you must go. However, if that's not what happens, then you shouldn't be in a setting like that. In al-Durr al-Mukhtar, in al-Dusuqi from the Malikiyah, in al-Shirazi fi al-Muhadhab, and Ibn Dwayyan fi al-Mubda', and Ibn Qudama in al-Mughni, and I think it is actually the 7th volume. The 7th volume. In these books, which are books on books of fiqh and the four madhahib, if you can go and change a munkar, go change it. If you can't, then you don't need to be in a setting like that, even if you are invited. Why I would say even if you are invited? Because many of the ulama consider it wajib. If you're invited to a wedding or a walima, it's wajib upon you to respond to your brother's invitation. It's wajib to go. Yet if there is public sins that are widespread that you can avoid, then that wajib is no longer a wajib. That wajib is haram upon you to go according to the four madhahib and in the books that I mentioned, it's haram upon you to go unless you can change it. Then if you can change it, then you can go. We have lands that have been occupied for over half a century. Lands that within them is our third holiest shrine. And there's those who cry, liberated, liberated, and they talk about liberating. Yet, when that talk goes around, one needs to do a reality check within himself and ask, why is the ummah in the gutter that it's in? Why, for over a half a century, pertaining to that holy lands, they're going and we're going, because this is Muslim, what affects them affects us. Why are they going and why are we going through that which we've been going through? We need to reflect. We need to analyze. When a company loses some of their income, the CEO gets together with his managers and high-ranking officers, and he gets to meet with them and asks the question that's typical. What can we do? What strategy can we develop so we can win back the income or the profits we had in the past months? We need to change. When generals, Muslims and non-Muslims, whoever may be, whenever they lose, it's tactical to ask, why did we lose that battle? What is it that caused us to lose that battle? Likewise, when you have 1.6 billion humiliated and degraded to the lowest of low by no more than 6 million, possibly 16 million at the most, you gotta ask why. The Sahaba were defeated. In the Battle of Uhud, the Sahaba were defeated, and they asked that same question. أَوَلَمَّا أَصَابَتْكُم مُّصِيبَةٌ قَدْ أَصَبْتُم مِّثْلَيْهَا قُلْتُمْ أَنَّ هَذَا أَوَلَمَّا أَصَابَتْكُم مُّصِيبَةٌ قَدْ أَصَبْتُم مِّثْلَيْهَا قُلْتُمْ أَنَّ هَذَا. We wonder why we have become the lowest of the low. The Sahaba asked when they were defeated on their way back to Medina after the defeat, why? أَنَّ هَذَا. Why did this happen to us? Allah gave them the answer. Before they reached the Medina, they got the answer to what was happening. They asked the question, what's the tactical, what's the strategy so we won't be defeated again? Why is it that we were defeated? What's the reason? Allah says, قُلْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِكُمْ. قُلْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِكُمْ. From you, something that you, Allah, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Something you have done. You check yourself. Instruments don't liberate. Instruments of the shaitan degenerate. Take that as a rule. Instruments of the shaitan do not liberate lands that have been taken from us. Instruments of the shaitan and those where they're widely spread are not ways for liberating. They're ways for degenerating. What victory are you awaiting? We are not saying that everyone is like that. No. Ma'adallah. I'm going to go even to the extent of saying not just everyone's not like that. Not even the majority are like that. I'm going to say that to be on the safe side. Not even the majority. Let's say not the majority. However, when sins become widespread, where many are involved, and it's popular, even though it's not the majority, and it's popular, then it affects everyone. When it's popular, it affects everyone. When towns in their entirety, from Palestine, around us over here, even though not all, and I'm going to repeat that again and again, even though I'm going to say to be safe, not even the majority, when you got towns who have weddings that play the instruments of the shaitan, and it's not exceptional within that town, it's exceptional in that town, and he's a stranger, one who decides to do his wedding the Islamic way. It's widespread. That is widespread. It's a widespread sin. In Uhud, 50 men under the leadership of Abdullah ibn Jubair. They didn't mean to disobey the Prophet ﷺ. These are men who went to give their necks for the sake of the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't mean to disobey him. They made an educated guess that they cited the correct opinion in it. Out of respect to the Sahaba, we don't say they made a mistake. We say they made an educated guess upon themselves. They cited, Abdullah ibn Jubair said, I'm not leaving the hilltop. Abdullah ibn Jubair said, I'm staying on this hilltop, on this mountain. The Prophet said, stay here, no matter what, I'm going to stay here. 700 with the best man to walk on the face of the earth get defeated for the minor mistake of less than 50. Less than 50. The entire Muslim Ummah back then gets defeated because it's the Ummah there. The entire Ummah gets defeated for the mistake of not even 50, because some of the 50 stayed on the mountain. When evil is widespread, destruction and defeat awaits this Ummah. That's the way it goes. قُلْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِكُمْ. I say, and I'm responsible for what I say, towns have rituals and weddings from Palestine. I don't even want to name those towns, especially widespread around us. I don't want to name those towns when I could. They're more shameful in their mixing and their mingling, in the way the women are dressed, in the improper dressing, than the enemies that we are facing. Umar ibn Hussein, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he narrated that the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam قال في هذه الأمة خسف ومسخ وقذف. في هذه الأمة خسف ومسخ وقذف. قال رجل من المسلمين يا رسول الله متى ذلك؟ قال رجل من المسلمين متى ذلك يا رسول الله؟ قال إذا ظهرت القينات والمعازف. إذا ظهرت القينات والمعازف وشربت الخمر. In Sunan al-Tirmidhi, it's an authentic hadith. The point of this hadith is that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said there will be maskh in this ummah. There will be maskh in this ummah. What's maskh? Al-Mannawi defines maskh as تحويل الصورة إلى أقبح منها أو مسخ القلوب أو قلب الخلقة من شيء إلى شيء. What does that mean? Maskh. There's going to be maskh at the end of time, at some time. And the Sahaba asked, when will it be? What's maskh? Before we get to that, the other points of the hadith. It can be real change of human into, for example, pigs and donkeys, like another hadith specified. This one doesn't specify, but it could be real. A human being changed to the form of a pig and a donkey. It could be the changing of the heart in the mind. You go talk to someone, you think you're talking to a human being, but you're really not talking to a human being. Wallahi ya akhi, this is haram. You talking, you're in the east and he's in the west. It's like you're not talking to a human being. It could be that as well. It could be a real change, and it could be a heart and a mind change. And then he said, khasfun wa maskh. And then there's going to be khasf. The next one is khasf. And that's al-ghawr fil ard. There will be earthquakes. The earth will open and swallow people. That is khasf. That's the second one. And then there's going to be the third one that the Prophet ﷺ said, there will be qadhf. And qadhf is hijara. Throwing or the dropping of stones from the sky. Like that which happened, for example, to the people of the elephant. Abraham, the people of the elephant. In Surah Al-Fil. So when does that happen? When those three things happen? The Sahaba asked, when does that happen? He said, when the qayyinat in ma'azif are widespread. إذا ظهرت, if it appears, not even, it's actually, ظهرت is actually a rank lesser than widespread. What are they? What are the qayyinat and what are the ma'azif? Qayyinat is entertainers, the singers that sing and inspire you to do haram. And ma'azif are the instruments of the shaitan. More so in another hadith, the one by Abi Amr, narrated by Abi Amr, or Abu Malik. سمع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول ليكونن من أقوام من أمتي يستحلون الحر والحرير والخمر والمعازف. From this ummah. This is not talking about the non-believers. This is talking about this ummah. The followers of this ummah. There will be some people who will consider illegal sex, illegal intercourse, adultery and fornication. They will do that. They will consider that. They will consider the wearing of silk. They will consider the drinking of alcohol and the musical instruments as lawful. They will consider it lawful by their acts possibly, or clearly saying this is halal. And you see that today. They will get, there's other narrations of the hadith to show you how Allah may doom someone overnight. They will get a visitor or a passerby, a Bedouin, come by to these people who are engaged into these illegal acts, and he'll ask them for something. He may need to buy something from them. We don't know. The hadith doesn't mention. The other narrations, the hadith doesn't mention. But they'll tell him, come back tomorrow. We'll give you either what you need tomorrow, the business transaction, or the directions, or whatever it may be. They'll tell him, whatever purpose you asked us, come back tomorrow. Some of them will wake up. The hadith wants to show you how smooth and swift the disaster of Allah is for such people. They will wake up overnight. Some of them are monkeys and swines. These are from this ummah. Some of them are monkeys and swines, and we described what monkeys and swines. It could be real, or it could be that their hearts and minds are like that. And they will be transformed into monkeys and swines until the judgment day. They will remain so until the judgment day. Meaning, when those matters occur, the matters that we said, that they will consider lawful. When those matters occur, and amongst them is usage in lawful, considering lawful, the instruments of the shaitan. When those matters occur, there will be a sudden and swift punishment. And what do you want? A bigger punishment than being the most humiliated ummah out of the ummah today, where 6 million stand on the top of 1.6 billion and defeat them. That goes in history. Look at the other side. These are the Muslims. These are the Muslims that will be transformed into apes and monkeys and swines. Why? Because of the musical instruments. The Qur'an also says about the opponents. What did he say about them? وَجَعَلَ مِنْهُمُ الْقِرَدَ وَالْخَنَازِيرَ. Those who incurred the curse and the wrath of Allah. Those whom he transformed into monkeys and swines. Now this verse is not pertaining to this ummah. This is pertaining to our opponents. Now the conclusion out of that. The first two hadith are about this ummah. The ayah is about the opponents. People will be transformed from both sides into apes and swines. The point, when you got apes and swines, or monkeys and swines fighting monkeys and swines, the stronger wins. That's how it goes. Of course, not everyone listens to that or engages in those major sins and those unlawful acts. Not everyone. And I'm going to say not even the majority. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to add not the majority. I'm going to say it's widespread, and no one can deny that. It's widespread. When you can't even approach people and tell them this is haram and halal. Wallahi, they have communities here, they have clubs here that they sit and drink coffee and backbite and do all that which is prohibited. And possibly sometimes they invite a guy to lecture. They ask, what does he say? Before you invite him, what does he say about musical instruments? It's haram, don't bring him here. Wallahi, this has happened. Some of you here know this very well. When it becomes widespread, Allah holds everyone accountable. Us who don't engage in that, and those who are in that. All of us are held accountable. Now, I don't like to get off topic in these kind of classes, but this is not really off topic. The point is, those who perform those kind of illegal ceremonies are a source of the defeat, are a major source of the defeat. We know about them, and there's no denial about that. What's the point? The problem is, I see a righteous brother, or I'm told about a righteous brother. And this happens and it's very irritating. You deem him, he's righteous brother. He comes to the halaqat. He is good in his Islam. And then suddenly he tells you, or you're told of that he was in one of these ceremonies. And what's his justification? He's there under the pretext of da'wah. Now you ask the brother, why did you go to that wedding? Why did you go to that ceremony? Why were you in the middle of that evil that you really didn't have to go to? Da'wah. The answer is da'wah. Okay. Did you speak there, then leave immediately? You can possibly understand that. Did you speak and immediately head out of there? No. Did you stop them? No. Did you even talk there? No. In reality, you think because you have the overall appearance of someone who's religious, whether it may be because one has the beard or whatever it may be, and that your wife is a muhajjaba, and you take her there, and then you assume merely because of your presence that you're there for da'wah. That's the shaitan playing with your mind. قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ أَعْمَالًا الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. There's people who think they're doing righteous, and in reality it's evil that they're doing. They think they're doing it under the pretext of da'wah, but in reality it's not good what they're doing. You don't go to those places claiming da'wah. That's our point. You don't go to places of sin and claim da'wah unless you're there to stop it. You can't be present in those places unless you're there to guide them, unless you're there to stop it. If they're listening to you, if you have influence over them, if you can talk them out of it, go there, and you must and you should go there. Part of the ordaining the good and forbidding the evil is that those who do those kind of sins should be the outcasts. And they shouldn't be the type of people who are looked up to. Today we get brothers who are struggling to start off their marriage life on the Qur'an and the Sunnah. Sometimes it's the bride. She calls, I have this in my traditions, and some traditions that don't conflict with the Qur'an and the Sunnah. We're not going to talk about that, but there's traditions that are conflicting with the Qur'an and the Sunnah. Those belong under our feet, no matter what they are. The Qur'an and the Sunnah has precedent over everything. You see those who as a bride, or a young man who's trying to get married, and he is facing a struggle to try to have his marriage in the right way, for example. That one is the outcast, and he's the stranger. It's not the other ones who are in the sin that are the outcasts and the strangers. You see what I mean when I say it's widespread? Don't ever engage in such matters under the pretext of da'wah. The same scenario applies when, for example, you see a sister. I go visit universities with improper hijab, what they call hijab, and the attitude in a university, standing before a table with a bunch of leaflets, and you ask, what is exactly she doing? Oh, she's doing da'wah table, brother, this week. You go da'wah in that manner? You have to know how to give da'wah. You don't engage in a sin in giving da'wah. And you don't go in a place where it's sinful and you give da'wah, unless you're there to stop it. Likewise, those who give da'wah under the platform in the banner of interfaith. They claim that that's da'wah. They claim under the platform, why are you in interfaith? Why are you going under the banner of da'wah, brother? These are the people of the book, we got to give them da'wah. There's something called da'wah, which we're all for. And we're all for da'wah. And there's a principle of kufr called interfaith. Interfaith is a principle of kufr. If you don't know about it, you need to go study it. It's kufr on top of kufr. It's the aspect of kufr, interfaith. You don't go under the banner of interfaith, giving a talk or a participant in such organization, and they say, I was there for da'wah. You go do da'wah under the banner of da'wah, or under a neutral banner, not under the banner of interfaith. The point of all this is that you don't mingle with sinners and cry da'wah. I mentioned some of this in a question and answer a while ago when I was asked about marking Muslims, and I mentioned the verse of Allah, وَقَدْ نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الْكِتَابِ أَنْ إِذَا سَمِعْتُمْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ يكفر بها ويستهزأ بها فلا تقعدوا معهم حتى يخوضوا في حديث غيره إنكم إذا مثلهم. When marking goes on, don't sit with them. Why? Allah says إنكم إذا مثلهم. That applies to marking, but it applies to other sins as well. Okay, that's the point that we wanted to cover, our first point.